Before we start all of the talking sessions, I would like to invite the head of Center for ASEAN Studies, Associate Professor Dr. Nisit Pantamit, to deliver an opening and welcome remarks. Please welcome.
Distinguished speakers, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to welcome all of you to this seminar from local to global, APEC, challenges and adaptations from innovative local business in the CLMVT. As I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Mr. Martin Venzky-Stalling, our senior advisor from CMU Science and Technology Park, for attending this event, and who will giving a special talk later today. I would also like to express my sincere gratitude to all the speakers who are here, including a friend of mine from Vietnam, Dr.Pham Tuan, Deputy Director General, Vietnam Institute of Economics from Vietnam Academy of Social Science, Assistant Professor Dr. Xayphone, Kongmanila, Director of Department of Accountancy, the Faculty of Economics and Business Management, National University of Laos, and Ms. Yin Pyu, the co-founder, Forinnovative from Myanmar, Mr. Hem Chan Sopriak, Project Director of Priya Chan's Community from Cambodia. He's also a brother who come several times to Thailand. He was impressed with Chiang Mai, so welcome you again to CMU. And also Ms. Surintip Pikayupong Satit, the Managing Director of Miracle Company Limited. Thank you in advance to everyone for being here today and for sharing your extensive knowledge and insights on today's topic. To give you a brief introduction about us, the Center for ASEAN Studies at Chiang Mai University, we are the unit that have the mission of discriminating knowledge and develop academic work on a political, economic, social, environmental, and cross-border issues in the ASEAN community. In the past few years, we have had the opportunity to organize several academic activities, including the ASEAN Camp for the students and the multiple public seminars, as well as publish many academic books. The objective for today's seminar will also have two main objectives. The first of all is to exchange knowledge about innovative local business and entrepreneurship in the CLMVT countries. Last but not least, to exchange experience on how innovative local business in CLMVT, as the moderator just mentioned, adapt to virus crisis, including, for example, the COVID-2019 and the other social or political situations. And also we try to adapt and foster cooperative and networking among the stakeholders in the CLMV. So on the behalf of the Center for ASEAN Studies, we hope that you find these seminars interesting and insightful. Thank you again for taking the time to participate in this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Nisit. And before we start all of the sessions, I would like to invite all of the speakers to take a group picture together in front of the stage, please. And today we have a special guest. Actually, he is born German. May I introduce a bit about our special guest speaker today, Kun Martin Venzky-Stalling. Kun Martin Venzky-Stalling works as the consultant across Southeast Asia on business, policies, ICT, innovations, and sustainability issues. He is the senior advisor at Chiang Mai University Science and Technology Park, and he is also the secretary of the Creating Chiang Mai and Initiative. Martin has established And Kun Martin also has worked for large companies and new business, and is a frequent speaker at events like Tech Source, Sustainability Expo, NIA Chief Innovations Officer Programs, and etc. He is the license holder and organizer of TEDx Chiang Mai. He has been a judge and the mentor to several startups, competitions, and studies at the differences between entrepreneurial behaviors and influences in different ecosystems and countries to identify factors that can help improve the entrepreneurial process. Previous positions include Associate Director at PricewaterhouseCoopers, Senior Vice President for International Projects, Hong Kong Telecoms, and Director for all consulting activities at OVIMS. He has extensively worked on technology and led transformation, ICT, smart cities, and e-government projects in Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. He is a member of the Joint Foreign Chambers of Commerce in Thailand and the EABC Digital Economy and ICT Group. He regularly advises local and international clients on policy, strategic issues. He worked on economic analysis, marketing, businesses, reorganizations, sustainable growth strategies, and the use and impacts of digital technologies. And his experience in workshop facilitators. Now, the floor is yours, Martin, please.
I like to stand because I'm exhausted. You know why I'm exhausted? I have to admire the MC for reading the whole bio that I sent to him. I thought you'd just say, this is Martin from Chiang Mai University Science and Technology Park, and the rest you can read about this guy. But thank you very much for reading the whole bio. So for me to energize after listening to all that, I need to stand. Good morning, everybody. So I'm Martin Venzky-Stalling, and I work at Chiang Mai University. And I would like to get to know you a little bit better. So I would like to ask, who is from Thailand? Could you raise your hand? Who is from Thailand? Okay, so that's like 70%. Who is from Vietnam? 2 people from Vietnam. Who's from Myanmar? 2 from Laos, Cambodia. Any other countries? Raise your hands now. So we've got a little bit of a mix, and I'm sorry I'm not mentioning all countries that might be here. Let me show you my first slide. I didn't open this. Maybe the file is quite big. Wait. And now I have to. Good. Okay. Is it coming up? Yes. Okay. Right. So I give you a quick overview about where I work and the work that the CMU Science and Technology Park is doing, and then I will go into another presentation and talk a little bit about the context of innovation and entrepreneurship in startups, the way I see it as not only as a CMU advisor, but also as a person that works a lot in this region on entrepreneurship. And it goes without saying, this topic is very important because I think all governments in all agencies working in this region realize that entrepreneurship, small businesses are key to employment and to the GDP contribution. And also, they hope that startups and entrepreneurs can use more technology and be more innovative so that they contribute to all the development goals that a country typically has. So, addressing environmental issues, using digital technologies, and so on and so forth. So this is you are interested, you are entrepreneurs, so be rest assured this is a very important topic. You are important people because you are interested in this, so hopefully you take away some encouragement. So this is the building that I'm in, and see how this works. So the Science Park, just very briefly, is not only about startups, it's also about research and innovation. And I think this is very important when you think about the topic of that I was given, entrepreneurship, startups, and innovation. How do we make startups more innovative? Because ultimately, it also goes back to all our Vietnam, Thailand, and so on, our innovation systems. We cannot expect more innovative startups and entrepreneurs if the overall innovation system has many, many problems. So we need to also look at this context. And the Science Park is trying to help. It is driven, in our case, by the university, Chiang Mai University and other universities. And for many entrepreneurs, this is one of the challenges. We call it the Valley of Challenge. You might also have heard the Valley of Death, but we thought that was too negative. So, you know, that many, sometimes 80% of startups die after 5 years, they stop. So what we are trying to do at STEP is to make better startups, better entrepreneurs, and also to help them survive and grow over time. So this is really what we're trying to do. And so we developed a sort of launch pad, and I'm not going to go through all this. My main message to you is that if you are longer term in Chiang Mai, you might want to come and say hello and see what STEP has to offer and see whether you're eligible to some support issues. If you are from another country, like my fellow speakers here, maybe there are some ideas here that you want to take back to your country and share with your organizations or institutions. So we've been working a long time on this, and we are working with founders and entrepreneurs of all ages, not only students. We are also working with creative designers, we're working with craftspeople, we're working with tourism industry, but a lot of focus is, of course, as we as a science park, on science-based innovation and startups. So we're working on helping them with the pre-ideation, then the idea, validate that, prototype. You know, this is a kind of one way of describing the startup process. So we help them with that. And yeah, we've been working we helped 240 startups now in the last 10 years. And some of them, about 24 are worth over 300 million baht, I'm told by my colleagues. So Thailand doesn't have so many unicorns, we have 3. But we decided in Chiang Mai, actually, we need to refocus from unicorns, you know, making the billions, to making solid startups that can grow, that create employment. Maybe we introduced a new word called ponies. It's not new, but pony is much smaller animal, right? So it's, but it's still, you know, a few hundred million baht. So we had a event where we were talking a lot more about ponies. At the Science Park, but this is not the overall picture for Thailand, but at the Science Park, over half are in IT and software, some are in medical and biotech, energy not so much yet, agriculture and food. This is because we are working very, very hard on trying to work with startups in these areas, but it's not the overall picture of Thailand. So we just opened a new center at the Science Park. The Science Park is about 15-20 minutes by car from here on the south, on the Canal Road. We opened what we call Base Camp 24. So this is, you could actually work there 24 hours if you wanted to. And we created sort of a methodology of how startups can graduate, like if you go to the peak of Mount Everest, or at least you make it to Base Camp. Actually, Base Camp is hard enough. So how do you get to base camp, right? So these are the steps. Find your why, what's your USP, what is unique, what problem are you solving, get the right team, and then up to, you know, finally you've maybe got your first venture capital investor or something like that, or your proof of concept. And then, for each station on the way to the summit, we have different interventions to help startups and entrepreneurs, depending on which stage they are. So if you are like an explorer, maybe you get different coaches and different training and different activities to help you move on from the Explorer camp to the next, to the next, to the next, so you can graduate. So I may not cover all steps. So this is the overall ecosystem, and later on I have a slide about Thailand's ecosystem, and all countries have these ecosystems because you need to understand. And as an entrepreneur, you should do some homework, because then you can see who could potentially help you, who could recommend you with some funding or some, you really networking and going out there is extremely important. So these are some of the examples of startups that graduated. I think I was told yesterday we had the US consulate visiting us, and I was told this is probably one of the #1 startups at STEP. They're actually cleaning companies, so they provide maids and cleaning services. Very popular initially with Airbnb, that they just contact this company and then they clean it for them and so on and so forth. And now they are in Bangkok and maybe also some other countries. So this is actually a science-based extraction of active ingredients. So you can make Kefir shampoo-based shampoo, but because of the scientific process, working with the researchers at Chiang Mai University, the level of active ingredient, the concentration is much higher than you would get through a normal process. So there's real science based on behind it. And the only problem is this product is quite hard to find because it's very, very popular at resorts in Maldives and other countries. So this has done quite well. Neighbor is a community platform, so this is basically IT. So just to give you some overview, I want to get to the next steps. So these are kind of some of the activities. So probably at STEP, we have ongoing programs all the time, and then we have at least 5 or 6 big events that people can apply and join and pitch and compete with other startups. Sometimes in specific areas like health tech and so on and so forth. And then we organize these business brotherhood. I also try to make it a little bit fun. This is an interesting research to market is, I really like this one, is trying to connect researchers in the university with students. And then they're working together to pitch. Because one of the key challenges for a student, so Thailand and most countries in this region want to also get younger people to become entrepreneurs and startups. But younger people have a lot of expertise in some areas, like compare yourself with a grandma using maybe doing coding or using the iPad and laptop and doing stuff online. Compared to them, you're much more probably much better at it, but you have maybe less experience in functional areas or different markets. And the experience in many countries in this region still sits inside the university or the corporate sector. So corporate is another issue. But so we're trying to bring them together so that they form teams and hopefully something comes out of it. I always think it's important to remember failing is okay. Right? So if you can, you want to succeed, but often, actually, sometimes in the past, sometimes the government sort of said, oh, this didn't work. The software park Thailand in the beginning was like, not everybody succeeded, there were issues. And then later, 5 years onwards, you hear that the companies or the people that met in the software park Thailand actually started something else. They just didn't succeed with their first or second venture. They started with something else. So I think the same is if you're working with your Ajahn, maybe the first time it doesn't work, but maybe the second time, third time you make some changes. Startup League and all these sort of programs, there's quite a lot. So if you have time and you want to visit, you can just we have several coffee shops and you can walk around a little bit at the science park and familiarize yourself. So I just wanted to kind of this is where I work. Personally, I also work a little bit more diversely in areas like tourism, crafts, and creative industries. So let me now go to my other presentation. Because how I'm doing on time? Until 10 past 9, or how long do I have? Something like that? Okay. So, So this was startups in Thailand and the role of innovation. So the Thai government is trying to promote startups, but and it really started about 10, 12 years ago. So Big Bang, kind of like when the Thailand Startups became a word, it's not that old. Of course, we always had startups, and before many people, we just called something else, new business, right? I started a new business, but now everybody is a digital nomad or a startup, an entrepreneur. But it became more of a focus area that startups are a good thing for the country. Entrepreneurs need to be supported and connected in different ways. But then they realized actually they would like to make more of the startups focusing on areas like this: education, health, biotech, energy, and so on, rather than the more generic startups, Me Too startups that we saw maybe in the first 5 years. I remember I was involved in a startup weekend. Have you heard of startup weekends? So startup weekends is like when you put together teams for 3 days and they knock out a business plan, right? So it's very, very intensive. And sometimes I have an idea before, but sometimes I don't. I remember the winning one, this is like 8, 9 years ago, was an app that enabled people to share their wardrobes, right? So you have too many clothes and you can share that and via the app with other people that are also willing to share. Kind of like a platform networking model online. It was actually neatly thought through, and I think apps like this have been quite successful. But do you really feel wow about a closet sharing application? When I personally, as my long bio said, I work on sustainability and digital transformation and issues that I'm worried about, or I would like us to leverage the strengths of Vietnam, Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos, and Thailand, because we have a lot of strengths in different areas. Can we not dig more into those areas rather than generic stuff? And these are some of the areas that Thailand identified as it should be good at. So we have a quite strong medical sector, medical wellness, education, of course, and energy and biotech with the life sciences and agriculture. It's not on here, but it's on another slide. Agri-tech, very, very important for Thailand. So how do you do that? Well, what's the reality? So overall, in Southeast Asia, Thailand ranks, according to this startupblink.com source, 4th. So definitely not the top. I think Vietnam and Thailand are a little bit like dancing on different slots. And then global ranking 53. Hard to tell, is that good or bad, right? But I think most people here feel it should be better than 53. Most Thai people feel it should be better than 53. Another one is quite interesting, where are the startups? So they are often in e-commerce and retail, or marketing and sales. And there's some business solutions as well, like HR stuff and so. And notable, like Agoda started here, Faraway, Wong Nai, and others, and there's now, I think, more update list on notable startups in 2021-22. But anyway, this is from a source. I like to have a source when I can. What do we take away from this slide, and also generally what are some of the issues? So generally, as I was saying, many startups are in this sort of quite generic field. You create a platform, you do e-commerce, you sell to consumers. You have to have some ideas to be successful, but it is quite generic. And more the push is towards startups in education and agriculture, in food, biotech, in smart cities, and so forth. So people feel like, yes, the startup scene in Thailand has taken off finally from 100, maybe now we reached 53, but we want it to be better internally in the mix of what's happening. So yes, this is a very nice picture from the National Innovation Agency. Every year they publish the Startup Universe picture, and always very beautiful slide. And they also create this report. So I've put in the source. You can have my slides later on. And then you can look up some of these sources. So inside is a sort of ecosystem as government agencies, co-working spaces, incubators, banks, VCs, and then outside are the sectors. And of course, they're working very hard in creating this nice-looking universe to make sure that it looks like every sector has something. But I tell you that most are in the e-commerce, general startups space. And when we're looking for good clean tech, environmental startups, still not many. When we're looking for architect, okay, it's agriculture, but actually it's IT. So it's like a smart platform that informs the farmers maybe about something, but it's very IT centric, right? So you could potentially create a platform not knowing really agriculture, just having good contacts with the farmers might be enough. So that kind of thing, right? So not saying it's not a good startup, I'm just saying it's still a little bit coming from the IT area. And then obviously digital and IT is pervasive in all startups, and maybe it's a key. But looking at our countries present today, I really believe in this sort of ponies and the smaller kind of startups, as long as they're viable and they're innovative. And so sometimes the IT and digital comes in not just to solve problems because, oh, IT and digital, that's scalable, right? I think for me, you should look at other markets, but you always go to other markets, that's a different thing, but always look at other markets. And that's a problem in Thailand. And maybe, I don't know, what would be interesting to hear, but many startups and many researchers don't look at other markets when they go through the ideation in the startup process. And that I think is really not okay, right? It's better if you have the mindset already, and we get this on, like some startups in Thailand, they actually cannot succeed in Thailand. New mindset. I'm creating a startup that cannot succeed in Thailand, but I could succeed in London. So can I contact the UK embassy and maybe join some program in the UK because of my idea? But many entrepreneurs in Thailand think we need to succeed in Thailand first, or only, and they never look outside, so they don't know what happened already. So anyway, it has developed a lot, but inside, under the surface, still issues. You can see this is one way of looking at the issue, although I'm personally less focused on that now. When you look at the top fundraisers, wow, Thailand, no Thailand. Okay, right? Look at the unicorns, China, India, okay, expected big countries, South Korea, Singapore, we know that. But Indonesia, Japan, Australia, okay, so Thailand has 2, now has 3. Look, I'm not so fussed about the unicorns, but some people are, because it's like the ones that get high valuation, they get, multiple funding rounds and then ultimately get a high valuation. But it still does show us something that maybe the ecosystem and the startup system in Thailand is not quite the way we want it yet, right? I mean, even if we were to look at ponies or whatever animal is between the unicorn, there they are. So unicorns, centaurs, and ponies these are actually words that the startup community uses sometimes, but they love talking about unicorns and they're not so much about centaurs and ponies. But so if we looked at those, if we had the data, probably would be quite similar that Thailand has less than it wants to have. And most startups, as I mentioned before, are in fintech, e-commerce, business solutions. Business solutions in some way should be higher actually, But there are some issues on the business and corporate sector in Thailand, which is very dominated by very large conglomerates. So, and also some issues around preference about using the cloud as a service and so on and so forth. But anyway, you can see that sort of the first four are kind of not specific to a sector or a topic, right? And then you get into property or food tech or health tech or logistics and so. And this is what I was talking earlier about the science park. The government wants to see a lot more on the right side of this, because it's easy to start something for e-commerce where you sell online and you create some business model around it, but many also fail, and they don't add so much value to the country in terms of pushing the country forward as some that are maybe doing something in food tech or in or in architect and even in travel and hotels. So I like to create, and there's a very interesting, I think I have the source later, but the ADB has a nice report about trying how could we create more startups in education, health, agriculture, and the environment, because it feels like those are four sectors that would have a high developmental impact on all countries in this region, right? So whilst some deep tech and AI and others are also being promoted by Thai government, but they're saying in order to address some of the issues, this would be great to have more, and how do we do that is also included in that report. So I don't really like slides like this, but sometimes I just run out of pictures and others. So let me talk you through some issues that I see for Thailand, right? So there is the usual stuff. You go almost every country in the world, and I always say, our regulation, our funding, you know, this and that is not good. We need better. And Thailand definitely has that too. You know, we're always talking about how much limited early seed funding and risk capital is available, you know, not enough. And regulations, starting a company, even closing a company is difficult. So, you know, if you don't close a company properly because it failed, then maybe you can't start your next one. The tax department and others will say, hey, you haven't closed your last company, and that's difficult. So there are many issues, but the key ones that sort of more influenced by you and maybe depend on your mindset, but tech talent is still an issue, right? So it's a lot of competition for talent, and there's not enough. And the second point is a little bit more specific to students, but we've seen it with so a lot of Thai people like to have their own business. I think Asians are quite entrepreneurial in that way, right? So they like to have their own business, but often the businesses are not unique. They're kind of a little bit me too, yeah? West is sort of like, oh, another hairdresser, oh, another coffee shop, right? So Chiang Mai is a coffee shop capital of Southeast Asia. Maybe Vietnam will take over soon, but we have a lot of coffee shop entrepreneurs. So when we talk to coaches and at universities, at startups competition, they always say they feel there's too much of a rush from the original idea to the whole plan, right? The ideation phase, thinking about the idea, testing the idea, doing the research, that needs to be better. So I've been focusing a lot on the second point and how to make the idea that you are taking forward better. So there's this issue about financial and regulatory systems, sometimes not so easy to go global. It's an interesting one. A lot of Thai startups may actually, why don't we have so many unicorns? Because maybe when they start up and then they sell out too soon, some people say, so they feel it's too much work to go to Singapore and then to London, and so they find an international partner. And then of course the ownership changes and then maybe it doesn't show up in the same statistics. Interesting comment. I haven't quite validated that, but it kind of it kind of sits well with what I think is the next point. I think the two are connected. Selling out early to, if you're successful, bought by a global regional player, is connected to the next point, because Thailand is Actually, I sometimes call it like in global economy that is inward looking more than outward looking. So many Thai students, they study overseas, they rush back. They don't stay that long in Silicon Valley or in London or in Germany. They come back quickly because Thailand is such a nice place and all the countries here are such a nice place. So they come back quickly. They don't have that many role models of entrepreneurs that are truly global and are recognized by other startups. Often when you see events outside of Thailand, like not tech source but others, Thailand is not so presented. Some countries have advantages, Indonesia and Malaysia, language and so forth, but still, so Thailand actually still could be more open and more global thinking. And English is an issue. In Chiang Mai even more than in Thailand, but English is an issue for starting the company even if you only focus on Thailand, but it is also generally an issue in terms of going outside and so. Next point is an interesting one. Remember, I was asked to talk about innovation, right? Innovation in startups. Some innovation companies, they're not all IT software, something that you can do in a small office. Some architect, medical, clean tech, they require you to make stuff. They require you to create machines or equipment or adjust it. But Thailand has a lack of engineering and design skills, industrial design skills. So it's been seen as a major obstacle. I was just at a startup competition at another university in Bangkok, which is actually quite strong in industrial engineering and design. But for some reason, the startup teams didn't quite have people that knew about how to make these things. And it really showed that there were a couple of ideas that were related to products rather than just software or platforms. And they had a limitation in terms of how they were going to make it, right? And how creating a story and how to make it. So in some sectors, if you want to have innovative startups, engineering and product design skills are quite important, and maybe that's an area of focus coming out of the ADB report for the 4 sectors I mentioned. Overall innovation system and corporate landscape are also factors that influence you can do less about. Yeah, it's actually a little bit of a mix of things that you can do something about and you can't. But, okay, who knows what B2C is? Everybody knows what B2C is? Hands up, B2C? Who knows B2C? Can somebody who knows say it? B2C? Yes, please.
Business to customer.
Business to customer, no, business to consumer. Yeah, that's important because all businesses need customers, right? But it's to consumers, so it's to average people. Creating business models that are for people, for consumer, like the sharing application for clothes in the cabinet, and you can share that with your friends or others if you are willing to. And so it's a question on whether, as a startup, you focus on B2B or B2C. B2C tends to be easier because everybody kind of is a C. You all are a C, so you kind of can imagine what might be the gap in the market. But the problem is there are another 70.1 Thai people that can also, in Asian other countries, and so that are also Cs. They're also consumers. So there's a lot of competition, and also whilst it is easier to start, and it is probably the area where we do see a lot of unicorns, because if you are successful with a B2C model, you have 8 billion people as your target, right? Potentially, if you scale up. So think Facebook and think those kind of companies. They're changing, but they are largely B2C models, platforms. So yes, you have a small chance to become Mark Zuckerberg, but you also have a huge chance to be one of the 80% of startups that fail. Right. Now, why don't more people then do B2B startups? Because B2Bs are to other businesses. So you need to understand that business. You need to have some expertise in retail or in financial markets or in agriculture and so on and so forth. However, if you do understand, or if you do your homework, or you integrate somebody into your team, maybe the chance of surviving with a B2B model is higher. That is at least my hypothesis, that maybe you can do more about it because it's a market, it is customers that you know and you can work with. The downside is a little bit the deal, the revenue side of it is kind of more like chunky. So, you know, you could sell 50 jeans for 1,000 baht, or you could sell one deal for 50 jeans and to another business that then labels them and brands them. So you get deals less often, but bigger deals, right? So sometimes you need to be able to do that. You have to have enough money, you have to have the connections to get to these chunkier deals as a B2B model often implies. B2G is business to government. The whole maybe quite hard in many of our countries because government procurement is very difficult for startups, as is selling to large corporates. But it's changing. Some governments in our region are realizing that they need to maybe have proactive models to allow startups to become business partners and suppliers. So B2G is another area, like smart cities, e-government services helping with the government and so on. So now, looking at this, I don't want to ask the question who is over 45 in this room, but there is some research that said the most successful startup founders is 45, and most unicorn founders started their business at 34, and there's quite a few of these things. Now, half of you are going to leave now, right? I mean, okay, what's Martin is going to talk about? I'm too young for this. Well, the thing is, what is happening is people are realizing that the strengths in this region and to make this region more dynamic and actually the preference, the culture here is quite entrepreneurial. So how do you make young people more successful as entrepreneurs is certainly, I think, like step, right? Most of our startup founders, we have a few older people because aging society, so you also want to help them to start up a business. But many of ours are definitely under 34, if not under 28 or early 20s. So you can address it. What is the point of this slide then? Well, the point is, and actually has new research that is showing whilst maybe at the age of 45, your experience might help you to become a successful entrepreneur, maybe you are not so likely to be one of them because at age 45, family and midlife crisis and da-di-da-di-da and the alternative leaving your corporate job. So you could do it, but you don't, right? So that's one issue. Whereas on the other hand, at the age of 20 to 30, maybe you lack some experience, so the question then becomes, how do you overcome that limitation? Finding a partner, finding a mentor. If you are in the age of 20 to 30, you are maybe less wise, but sometimes less wise can be a little bit good too, because you might take some risks. You know, how do you create disruption if you keep doing it the same way? You can't solve the problems that we created with the old way, you need a new way to solve them, right? So, and also in some areas you have skills. Typically, I mentioned like most are more savvy in marketing or digital or ITs. So newer research is coming out and saying actually there are two kind of spikes in when entrepreneurs are successful. It's the young people, 20 to 30, and then the 35 to 45. So there are two sort of areas where, for different reasons, people are successful. So each group has disadvantage and advantage. The younger people, maybe more digital skills, more enthusiastic, more risk-taking, less constrained by old frameworks. The older ones have the experience, particularly for what I mentioned about market knowledge and functional experience, right? So here's a concept. How am I doing on time? Okay. This is the concept of founder fit. So there's two concepts on this slide. One is founder product fit and founder market fit. And what it's saying is that the people that have more experience, they have a lot of contacts. They know their market. They know, maybe they're also experts, and they are a nuclear energy expert, and so they're helping you. But they're tired of it. Now they want to do renewable energy. But they have expertise in the energy market. They know the energy market and all the players in the energy market in and out. So they're very strong in that market because they have the experience. So it kind of said that B2C is easier to do with that when you're younger, and B2B becomes, is better if you're a little bit older. And then in biotech, in some countries maybe, not all, because Thailand and our neighbors we are very strong in food and agriculture and biotech. So I think that I would expect that more young people get into biotech sooner when we help them. But generally it says, the more experience we have, the easier it becomes in these different areas. So the challenge as an entrepreneur, if you want to do B2B because you are interested in agricultural technology, or you want to do something for the environment, clean tech, is then how do you bring in this knowledge through a mentor or through a partner or through the ajahn. Ajahn means professor, researcher. How do you overcome it, right? So you need to fill that gap. And you learn from the experience. I thought this was a nice, interesting way. The failery. So a website actually calls itself the failery. It's quite a popular website, and it has a graveyard page where it shows startups that failed and analyze why. And it actually, I don't know, excuse me, but have you been to a fuck up night? So this is like where people get together and talk about what they fucked up in their startup journey. And so in the entrepreneurship scene, it is understood more that learning from that is also very important. So you can learn from these failures as well. And as I mentioned, I see a little bit more younger people, certainly in parts of the room. As I mentioned, when we discussed the startup program with King Mongkut University of Technology, Latgabang, then we were discussing how to help the students, and somebody said something, and then, yeah, that's the problem. It is at the beginning, and I was trying to think why, and I think different things are happening. I think the Generation Z or the young people are quite confident. Maybe sometimes a little bit too confident that they already know a lot of things. So maybe a bit more research and a bit more patience. Give yourself a little bit more time to research. So we had a professor from Germany coming over, and then the teams wanted to go out. We want to do prototype, we want to do this and that. And he said, no, let's discuss it a little bit more. Let's read a little bit, maybe ask some friends. And so spend a bit more time dwelling on this ideation and concept design stage. It's one way also to overcome what we saw earlier in terms of the age thing, experience. You can make it up by, for example, reading. Now nobody likes to read books anymore, but like if you ask researchers what they read, they say we read the abstracts of scientific journals. And if we like the abstracts, we read the diagrams. And if we like the diagrams too, then maybe we read the article. Great way of scanning without too much emphasis. Like you are a 25-year-old or 30-year, and you scan some of these latest thinking outside of your own bubble, outside of Thailand only, then maybe you can strengthen your idea, right? Maybe it's been done in Germany, but it's okay. Germany has done it before, but what can you learn from that? So spending more time on the ideation and concept stage. Why do people rush out? Because they're also nervous. People are also nervous when they have to pitch. not only do I have to present my idea, but then I will have to have a marketing plan, finance plan. I have to demonstrate I have a great team, and all these things. And then they are like the first time. And even if you're a researcher or a student, doesn't matter. They both have different reasons for being nervous about preparing all that and getting started. So you suddenly sort of feel like maybe a little bit of pressure to move on from the ideation concept stage, because you have to, when you pitch, and so you have to present and put together all that, and that's what we then do, right? You pitch, and then you may not have the time to go back and do more work on your idea. So I recommend to spend a little bit more time. As I said, if you want, it's good to think about viability outside of your own home market from the beginning, but at least your research and analysis should go beyond your own market. That's, for me, I think it's very important. So knowledge and research and grit. Actually, when you talk to some of my friends that have quite impressive businesses, and they say, you know what is the #1 success factor for being a successful startup? They say, you don't want to hear the answer. And they don't want to hear the answer. Because we hear so much about passion and doing something that you enjoy and doing something that, make a better world, social entrepreneurship and all that. Sorry, the hard answer is hard work. Really lot of hard work to be a successful startup. So that is so important, and this is like also doing some of the research, maybe reading a little bit more and taking notes so that you can make sure you don't make mistakes. Talk to a lot of people too, but also read something. And in terms of sort of how I work then with doing programs in startups, I'm trying to open up the mind using different tools like curiosity, gameplay, making things like, the Lego play and others, to bring out better ideas and check them, validate these ideas, and create connections between maybe this field and that field. So there are many tools that can help you to become better entrepreneurs and startups. So of course you still need to do the other things, very important, the financial plan, management, cash flow is king, all that. But if you don't have a good idea in the beginning and you go on and do it, that's not so good, right? I mentioned in my last slide, I mentioned this idea about the answer that nobody wants to hear, how to become more successful as an entrepreneur, and he said, hard work. It is easier if, this is now talking about product fit. So we talk about market fit because if you have a lot of experience, you know the market very well. But it does help if you're also a good fit with your product. If you love your product, certainly it's easier to work 18 hours a day and to really explore and not give up and try again. So this is the other concept, is the product fit. This is how you match your product and how you can be passionate and talk about it. It does help. But it doesn't mean that you don't have to work hard, even if you still have to do that too. I hope this was useful, and I thank you all for patiently listening. And I'll be around. I stay until lunch, so I'm open for questions. Do we have time for questions now? Okay. So I would love to hear a little bit from you what you think. Anything you disagree with, dare to disagree. Disagreement is good in startups. You need to have some discussions to validate what Martin is saying. Does it make sense? Come on.
Yeah. So the floor is yours now. So we open the floor to raise the questions. I also have some questions.
Okay.
So if some of you are still thinking about your questions, and firstly, because we just listened to your center, right, the science part. Yeah. If I am a startup, and how can I access to your service? And do I have to pay? And what I should have to prepare before I go to discuss with you?
So on our website and on our social media, we often post on how you can contact and if you have a new program. The programs typically are free because they're supported by the Thai government. If you only wanted to use your space, we also have a place called Brick Space. We have 3 bricks, 3 co-working spaces. There is a fee. Then you are just like using a tenant, maybe you join some public event. And the advantage of our BrickX is that we are a little bit more closer to government programs, so you hear about those things. But they're also very good other co-working spaces not to. So if you come, the easiest way is either you contact us via these channels online. And if you see an announcement for a new competition, like now there is something on health tech, form a team and apply and join that program, and then maybe you can be part of that program for the next year or 2. So there are also sometimes specific dates that you can join programs to help startups. So we have something that is open all year. We have space open all year, and then we have different programs or events.
Thai and English, right?
Okay, because we are a little bit more focused on Thais, but we have had some events where international startups based in Chiang Mai or even sometimes Bangkok joined these. These are maybe more the pitching contests, so it's shorter program where the coaches and the presentations can maybe sometimes international coaches too. So it's a bit of a mix, but because we're government supported, it's a little bit more for Thais, but we have some. I encourage you, if you're not Thai, and a few here are, that you still contact us and we explore.
Okay. Any more questions from the floor? I also have some other few questions.
Okay.
Yes, because you've been working and studying about the startup in Thailand for a while, right? This is what I want to know, that what kind of the startup business which go very fast in Thailand? In tech, in agriculture, it's which one is growing so fast?
Well, as I was saying earlier, the ones that are famous are like BitCup, ZipMax, and ZipMax is famous maybe for wrong reasons now, but and e-commerce, and all these e-commerce players, Okabe, they were the early entrepreneurs, and you got a few that started to like Bilk for the construction industry to provide a platform to find construction materials, and so that became a bit more sector focused, and so personally I'm more interested in the ones that are not the ones that raise a lot of funds, but the ones that are doing interesting business models, right? So if I like this company, I think called Rico, that is providing information to farmers based on a network and smart sensors and analytical algorithms to provide better data for agricultural sector. I think that is pretty interesting. So I'm looking out more, but the easy ones are the well-known ones are the big guys that are raising. Agoda started here and others, but for me less interesting. For me, maybe there are other names that you haven't heard about so much because they are more in the business-to-business field.
Any questions?
We actually have a very interesting startup here, and I will take your question. He is actually a foreigner, but he started a software business here in Chiang Mai, and then he somehow got into hydrogen. He built a new house for himself, had a little bit of money left from his first business, and then he built a hydrogen company because he bought equipment from an Italian company, installed it in his own house. He was building a new house, and then he realized that's really interesting technology, and the Italian company had some problems. So he took over the Italian company. He's now building a factory like, imagine Tesla factory, just a little bit smaller, like maybe a tenth or so or less. But still, like most people call it an interesting factor. The key point is actually he did that out of Chiang Mai. So you can, but then he went very quickly international and used his network. So, I think it's quite an inspirational story to hear for people that, and his success really was based also on his team. He had very good Thai people and the other international team that helped him to create the concept, work out the glitches in the engineering and so on. That was started here in Chiang Mai. So that's quite a proud company. We are quite proud that this guy always puts Chiang Mai on the map for innovative hydrogen startups. So you had a question.
So actually, your presentation is really good, and it reflects me. So it's kind of you are talking about our journey, and I'm very glad to see that the age of the successful founder. So I'm not sorry for not sad for myself because I'm too young to be success to the globally. Yeah. So yeah, actually I'm Yin and I'm from Myanmar. So we are now expanded our services to the regional level. So we are the agri-tech company. So actually we are very likely to discuss with you for the how we can collaborate with you and then how we can work more on this in Thailand to together to develop the startup ecosystem, and as well as inviting the young people to involve in this agri-tech company. Yeah. So maybe this is for the further kind of request for the further detailed discussion. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Looking forward to that. Yeah, on the age thing, I think the analysis is really to know yourself. So if you are, for me, it means that if you are young, you know that you have less experience, but you're a bit more risk-taking, and you might be think differently. So these are strengths and weaknesses or areas that you need to find another way to address them. Find somebody experienced. If you are older and oh, should I do it? And and you're unhappy in your corporate life or whatever you've been doing it. Well, maybe you will always regret if you don't do it. So this is the downside of being older and then doing it, right? So that's not I think it's just like statistics. You need to be able to understand the statistics and then what you do about it. Thank you.
According to your explanation, I found that the least one which not promoted this is the agriculture sector. In Thailand, we are the agriculture country, and in each year, so many products, so many fruit, oversupply, sometimes price coming down, and we need to convert into the to process to the other food. So we better focus to promote conversion from fresh food to processed food will be very good, get benefit.
I totally agree with you, sir, that, and this is also to me, it's like the definition of startups. What is a startup? And we often talk about startups and then you hear, crypto and metaverse and ICT, digital platforms. But in our countries, a good startup could be a startup that is very good at doing something with that product and turning it into that product and having the marketing skills to take that product to the market. And maybe there's a little bit of IT and digital marketing involved, but it's actually a lot not about digital and IT. It's a lot about really knowing processes in agriculture and food. One challenge is in our markets is that the average age of farmers is quite high. So talking about innovation and startups with some new concepts and a touch of new technology is not easy. So it's one of the challenges as to how to have, on the one side, low productivity and need for more value added in the products, because the farmer, a lot of things like in Thailand, we have the burning season, you know, the PM 2.5. It's plainly just because the farmers are not making enough money and don't have enough land, right? And we kind of enjoy that because when we buy the chicken, we buy the cheapest chicken and all that. We need to be able to give the farmers more money, right? So value added and side products and new practices. That's also entrepreneurship, right? That can be a form of startup or entrepreneurship. So we must not forget, as you just said, that there is a lot of other forms of startups and entrepreneurship. But it's a little challenging because on the one hand we see the need, but then there is also a little bit the aging society and movement from the countryside to the city and so but it has to happen. And when I was speaking at a panel about the sustainability of food, and Thailand likes to call itself the kitchen of the world, right? I don't know how our neighbors feel that. I think we are combined the kitchen of the world. So we provide a lot of exports on food products. That actually is under risk, right? Because we don't have enough people working in farming and global warming and all that. So we do need innovation, we do need ideas, we do need more value added in the agricultural and food sector to make it happen. So that's why I think why the ADB, and I can send you the link, I think I actually in the end forgot to include it, has a report on these 4 sectors, including agricultural, tech, architect.
Okay. Thank you very much for your wonderful presentations. I think today we have learned a lot from your presentations, especially your experience and knowledge. Thank you again. And APEC is a big approach to marketing.
Good morning, everybody. So first, I would like to thank you, Tia, for very encouraged introduction to my bio. So first of all, I would like to thank Professor Nisis Pantamit for an ASEAN Center for ASEAN Study to invite me here for. So what I'm here to share my opinion with the topic in this here. First of all, I would like to express my very well known to the Prophet from the presentation by Martin. I learned a lot from the presentation, very full of information and opinion and ideas about the startup in general and in Thailand in specifically, and even some of your insights very good for my country as well. Thank you very much. So my presentation is a little bit different because I'm looking at the topic from the perspective of an economic researcher and a little bit in the macro ways, and from the Vietnamese perspective about the study. So the name of my presentation is about the opportunity and challenge for the technology startup in Vietnam. The presentation consists of 3 sections. First, I would like to present about the context of the global and regional thus have the impact on the tech startup in general and in Vietnam. And I will explain a little bit more detail about the impact to the Vietnamese startup. The second, I discussed about opportunity and challenge, and the final one is giving some policy recommendation. What about the global and regional context? I think that's everybody here is very feel familiar with what we have to cope with for the past 3 years. The first one is the COVID-19, and I think it's the same for all the country. We have to lead the kind of the health crisis, and it's a big impact to society, to the business, and to each people in the country. And in Vietnam, the startup in my country have to deal with a lot of problems. Thus, we lost the customer, we lost the market, and even we have to find a way to maintain the business in the hard times. The second one is the digitalization of the economy. So because we all know this now, the time for the fourth industrial revolution, and we think about digitalize everything. We try to make the digital transformation for the society and for the aspect of the economy. The third one is the shift in the global political order. I want to talking about the we all know the China and U.S. Confrontation, and second is about the war in Europe, and it's happened between the Russia and Ukraine, and we don't know when the war will end, and that's the big question to the global order. And the final one is about some emergent issue. That's for all of to think about the climate change and about the aging society that will change the way the business will operate and the customer way and something like that. And that's what I think that's the business in Vietnam in particular and in other countries in ASEAN have to face in general. So what is what happened in Vietnam? First of all, I would like to say that now the digitalization or digital transformation is that happened at the very quick. I would like to say that now in Vietnam, the customer base is now transformed into the digital era. First of all, it's about the internet population is getting higher and higher. The number of people using the smartphone is getting higher and higher, and you can see that we surpassed the average number of the world since 2007, and the way people using smartphone is different now. More young people using the new app and for the social network, something like that, and that is this forms a very good base for the technology startup, because the customer is now familiar with the digital things, digital methods. So this is for the good for the technology startup. So this is some of the information, the data about the development of tech startup in Vietnam. In 2015, we only have about 1,008 tech startup, and up to now, we have nearly 4,000 tech startup. And in terms of that, we have 4 unicorns, as Martin just mentioned. This is a big one, and they have got some successful in the region as well. So what is the breakthrough of the tech startup in Vietnam is begin in 2016, when we begin to get the big investment from the private investment and from the foreign fund into the country. You can see the red column is the number of deal. That's the total value over $10 million US. Is getting higher and higher, and now is a common way to invest into the startup in Vietnam. And this is what I want to more emphasize into my presentation, is that since 2018, we have more and more startup more actively, and investment in 2 of them is last 10 times compared to 2017. That means the amount of investment into the startup increasing very quickly. This is the graph to show what I'm talking about. But here, this is the most interesting thing is that in 2021, we have more funding in the agri-tech and the health tech. This is the main focus of my study now. And because it is what happened after the COVID-19, because everybody now thinking about the health. It's a transformation after the COVID-19 pandemic, and the agriculture we have more concern about the development of agriculture in my country. As you all know, ASEAN, Vietnam is have a big agriculture sector. And regarding to the ecosystem, this is a very brief overview about the ecosystem in my country. But I have to say that among 5 stakeholders in the ecosystem, the contribution of government and the investor is the biggest contribution. Other contribution from university or the incubator is still underdeveloped. So I think that this is what we have to learn from other countries, especially in this case. I think the experience by Thailand is very good for us. What is about the support from the government? Actually, I can say that Vietnamese government is very active in supporting the development of tech startup. We have a lot of the policy documents to opening up for the development of the field, and we want to encourage them to develop bigger and expand the business further to the region and to the world. Of course, that's what they want to do, but in fact, the result is not that better. So, one of the very successful solution, we call it the project S44. And in this project, we giving the support in terms of the funding and the procedures in running the business for over 600 firm. 600 startup in my country, and this project is giving the base for the giving the base for the tech startup attitude in my country. That means now young people, especially the people from the university, they think about the startup is in the good way more than before. It's now becoming more common. Young students say that if they have the idea to form a startup, they will get the support from the government and from the market, and they will have the chance to be successful. And that is what this project success, in my opinion. Of course, the other thing about the project about the objective is very common. We can see that everywhere we want to focus on technology transfer, training, information, commercialization, and investing. It's very common objective of every project. But what I want to emphasize here is the project create the startup attitude for the young people in my country. Just the general picture about the technology startup, and I'm talking earlier about is now there is a very special way of investment into 2 sections. One is the health tech, and the second is about the agri-tech. This is about the very general information about agriculture sector in my country. As you might know, we have a big agriculture sector, and we need to be more developed because the agriculture in Vietnam is still very underdeveloped. We still not use many high technology vehicle, machine, something like that. Some of the job is still done by the manual ways. So that's why when we have the idea about the agri-tech into the agriculture, they get some very early successful. The second is about the health sector. The rising of the health tech is due to the COVID-19, as we all know. Now people more concerned about the health, about to avoid the disease and to maintain a good life. So that's why that's what the health tech is now getting the successful from them. So The startup in the health and in the agriculture now is in the very early phase of development, and I want to display some information about the most successful health tech and agri-tech in my country. However, I can say that is still in the early development. The number of the worker is still very low compared to other business, and the capital into them is not yet at the rising trend. However, some of them, for example, if we see at the capital they got at the moment and the capital they needed, so there is a big gap between what they got at the moment and what they need to for expand their business. So there is a very potential gap for the development here. And so this is from the perspective of the policymaker. What I find here is that we have find many limitations and the problems for the tech startup in my country, especially for agri-tech and for the health tech. The capital constraint, limited on the skill, and the ability to comply with administration procedure I think is very common problem. But to make it to help the startup, we need to make it better. And so, especially the barrier to the agri startup, and I especially find three barriers that's very particularly for Vietnamese startup. The legal structure is still need more adjustment. The connection with agriculture to innovation, and that's why I think that later my colleague from Myanmar, the innovator, I'm very waiting for the presentation, because that's the connection between agriculture and innovation. And the low capital investment to agriculture is a very common problem as well. We need more investment, and we hope Martin can, later I will ask Martin about how we can raise the capital to agriculture in my country. So for the health tech startup, it's very interesting as well, because for me, it's very prominent sector for the development in the long term, because now Vietnam has a very big population, and we have the problem of very fast aging as well, and many kind of disease we have to deal with at the same time. So, however, we have the barrier, of course, the quality of services, and even the financial problem as well. So, is a gap for development. So finally, based on that's what I have presented. I think that's from the perspective of policymaker. I think that's we need to find out some way to improve the sector. And I raised some of the recommendation that I want to emphasize here. It's a very common solution you can find in all of the presentations sent to me. So I just want to make this very quick. But first, we need to remove the barrier to, especially kind of the legal document, just to prevent the development of the sector. And second, we need to encourage the innovation. It's very important, because without innovation, the startup cannot develop in the long term, for the sustainable development in the long term. And we need the intellectual system here. And the incubator is very important as well, because as I said earlier, now only two stakeholders in the ecosystem doing the job good enough for me, in my opinion, is a government, and second is a business themselves, and they can ask from the investor in the market. And finally, we have to encourage the development of the idea in the university and in the research institution, and even we encourage the idea from the private sector. So that have the medium for the tech startup to develop further. Surely that means we need to combine effort from everyone. So that's what I want to present in my presentation today. Thank you very much for the attention.
Thank you, Dr. Pham. And any questions from the audience? Whatever you want to ask about the current situations of Vietnam economy or the startups. I also have some questions for me because what kind of business that still have the space for the new startup from your opinion in Vietnam? For example, like the foreigners like us want to do some small business in Vietnam. What kind of business that we still can do it? Yeah, from your opinion.
I think every business we need now. So. In Vietnam at the moment, I think that's we have many ideas. That means the young people have many ideas but we have some obstacle. That means maybe 5 or 6 years ago we try to encourage a lot of startup into the ICT, but we find the struggle here because we cannot compete with, let's say, other startup from even in the region. So the investment into ICT is now in the struggle. So and here what I present earlier, now we have a new trend to health sector and the agriculture, because agriculture is a big industry in my country. And from my opinion, we can, if you thinking about that means to build the business in Vietnam now, there's one new sector that's very good is the edutech. I mean the startup in education, but using the technology. I think it's very potential sector.
Mm-hmm. And during the COVID-19, what happened to all the startups in Vietnam? What happened to them?
I think they got a very terrible time. I think it is similar to business in all of our country. That's they lost the market, the customer is go away, and they lost the staff as well. Some of the staff is now they're doing another job. And for example, in the tourism, for example. We have many ideas of the tourism because we know that tourism is very good for the development of the economy. Mm-hmm. But due to the COVID-19, the labor in the tourism sector doing another job, they transferred another job, and now when the tourism recover, they get a hard time to recruit enough labor, enough staff for their business. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a lot of things, and we need that's why we need the support from the government and all the way.
Mm-hmm. And any questions from the floor? Okay.
After listening to your presentation, it's very wonder that Vietnam focusing strongly on the agriculture tech. That's why no wonder your selling price of durian already reached Thai durian already, so very fast. So in Thailand, agriculture tech, we are on the last, but in Vietnam on the front. That is the big difference. The other thing is the rice. Thailand rice cost very high, so we are selling at the higher price. Also cannot compete with Vietnam. Rice is going strongly and strongly. So this is your government is specially promote startup for agriculture tech or not?
Thank you, very good question. First of all, I think that's for agriculture of Vietnam. I have to say, for the past 10 or 20 years, we learned a lot from Thailand. For example, in terms of the rice, because Thailand can produce very good rice, and you sell the rice at the very good price in the international market. Why the price from Vietnam lower quality, and we sold at the very cheap price. So we learn a lot from Thailand, and what from my point of view is the effort by the private sector. The government knows the problem, but their policy is not, for me, is not remarkable enough to say that is the contribution from the government policy. But what they can do, they encourage the private sector to thinking about the difference and to try to catch up with Thailand. So that is, for me, is a successful. And the first one I want to raise here is the private sector. That means the people working directly in the sector. That's they want to try to develop the rice, the better quality and try to make the logistics more effective, so the cost reduce and they can sell at a better price. So that's my opinion from me. Thank you.
Good morning. I am Deng Somin. I am the CEO and co-founder of Greennovator. So yeah, last couple months ago, I've been to Ho Chi Minh, and I see the great energy level of young people in Vietnam. So they are very active for the next level. So like for me as a agri-tech business, so like I would like to know about the banking and payment solution in Vietnam. So like it is easy, or the farmers are using the payment, because like in our platform we have the marketplace. So we connect the farmer with the agri-dealer shop, and then they can buy their product. So the banking payment are ready for the rural area. I would like to know.
Yes, thank you. Very good question. I can say that in this way, so the payment system in agriculture in my country is still underdeveloped. That means, for example, the farmer is still prefer the traditional way. That's the cash is that means the traditional, and to transfer the money in the banking directly. It's not just like we use the money on the mobile, on the money on the internet banking. They're not very familiar with that way. So I think that the room for the development of the payment system in agriculture is very huge. So what the agri-tech in my country can do at the moment, they just try to build the system to connect between the seller and the buyer. But for the payment, it's still underdeveloped. I can say that. So I think the opportunity for you is very big in Ho Chi Minh cities, for example. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I think as an economist maybe, and as focusing on regulations that you would like to see being improved, you've been quite modest about the Vietnamese startup community. From what I hear, actually quite a lot of companies from Thailand, if they want to register and they have certain scale-up plans, they might register in Singapore for credibility in the international market, not Thailand. But I also hear a lot of companies opening up offices in Vietnam, and also some of the digital nomads. And so what do you think is the reason for that actually Vietnam quite often comes up as, I got to open an office in Ho Chi Minh, I've got to do something in Vietnam. There seems to be a trend. I would like to hear your perspective on that. The other question I have, is it possible for startups to issue stock options to their employees in Vietnam? Because we had that discussion here in Thailand. They opened up the opportunity to list specific market, but there was an issue about issuing stock options in Thailand. I believe now that is possible here. As I understand it, or it's almost possible now to give a stock option, because it's a very attractive incentive by founders to involve their workforce. So two questions. One is, how come Ho Chi Minh attracting quite a lot of companies from the region? And then secondly, about stock options. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Martin. So for the first question, I think I need to look into the situation more deeply. But from my understanding at the moment, why is, some company is got the register in Ho Chi Minh City is about the the favorable condition from the authority. That's why they feel that to establish the business there is getting them the benefit. So, for example, maybe about the tax or about the procedures to encourage the business is getting. So maybe the Ho Chi Minh City is better compared to other city, but or maybe in terms of the customer base, is Ho Chi Minh City is a big one, for example, something like that. But
human resources may also be one issue. People, skills, human resources.
Yeah, maybe, but because of the not from my understanding, because many of the Vietnamese startup is still trying to register in Singapore as well. So the way some of the startup is still, and even foreign startup register in Ho Chi Minh City. What I think about is only about the favorable condition from the authority in terms of tax, in terms of the way to doing business, the procedure, something like that, to make them feel the benefit here. So not about for other things like the payment system or the investment, something like that. I don't think that's the big factor here, from my understanding. Regarding the second question about the stock option for the startup, at this moment I think that is not yet approved. That means to issue the stock, the visit is you have to reach a level of development that's not available for the startup at this moment. You still have to mobilize the funding from the very common way for the startup, from the fund, from the fundraiser, something like that. Stock option is not an option now, in my knowledge.
Good morning, all distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great pleasure to be here. Thanks to Center of ASEAN Study, particularly as a Professor Dr. Nisitz, for inviting me to be here to share you about the topics of the innovative entrepreneurships, opportunity and challenge in Laos. So thanks to Martin and Mr. Martin and Dr. Tuan for sharing the information we learned. I have learned a lot about your sharing the informations. So this is my roadmap for presentation. Of course, it's a lot of topic, but it's a little bit short. So I will give overview of innovation. Actually, it's based on the theory, not the practice. And innovative entrepreneurship, and I will a little bit talk about the legislations of the firms in Laos, and also, of course, many countries invest in Laos right now. So, but I will a little bit touch in only top 10 FDIs, and we talk about opportunity and challenges. And the empirical study actually is my article that's raised and published in International Journal of Economics and Management, and talking about the firms that have innovation or not have innovate some things. Then I will go to the conclusions. Okay, this is the actually the term of innovations, actually based on the Victor Thompson's. Actually, he said that the generations, acceptance, and implementation of new ideas for product or services. This is the theory. Then, because of that, is creations or pursue a new idea as the innovation. Therefore, in my opinion, so we have the two kind of the innovation. So product innovation and process innovations. Of course, you have create products, new product or new there's new services. It's mean the product innovation. But sometimes you can create a new process of doing some things. Is we call process innovations. So based on the definition of the innovation, so we come up to the innovative entrepreneurship is it kind of practice or implementations of that new idea to their business or to their communities, or because of that to accomplish the company's goals. And I will come to the registered firms in Laos right now. On country we have 189,253 firms right now in total countries. And we have API or foreign investments for 10,577 firms right now. So if we compare to this, around only 6% of API is Laos right now. So on is the domestic firms, but because of this, in Laos we define the size of enterprise or size of firms as follow. The first one is we call micro enterprises or micro firms. Is the number of employees, number of workers equal or less than the 5 workers. Then if we have the worker 6 to 50 workers, we call small enterprises. And 51 to 99 workers we call small, we call medium enterprises, and over 100 workers we call large enterprises. Because based on the definitions, so SME is about 94% of the firms in Laos. So large company only 6% is really small number. And this is the FDI from another countries. The first one is from China. We have more than 6,000 firms right now. And second one is from Vietnam. For Vietnam is also more than 1.8 thousands. And the third one is from Thailand. It's a lot of Thai companies in Laos right now. Even though in special economic zones also, many firms. And South Korea is number 4, and France and Japan is number 6, and the Singapore is the last one, is 85 firms right now. This is the information from the Ministry of Industrial and Commerce this year. So before of that, because of I talk in terms of the economics perspective, so I cannot go to the detail of that information, how many company is innovative right now, so we cannot get that data. So we're talking about the opportunity of the innovative firms. So the first ones we in the Laos, we have the program of YICMG. Of course, is the 6 country of the regions. We have China, Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, Myanmar. So this also Thailand. So this organization is we have the innovative business plan competitions. One year we have to go around the country, 6 country, in because of the COVID-19 pandemic, so we cannot organize in Thailand. That we plan organize in 2021 in the Prince of Songkla University, so we cannot do that. But because of this, I think it's very good for the younger generations or young people to try to create new idea to implement their business. So if some project that wins this organization, let's say Mekong Lansang Sub-region organization will give the fund to initiative that business. And there are many projects right now from NGO and governments to support a new business idea. Of course, if you have new ideas, that organizations will be support you to initiate the business. We have a cooperation between the government and private sector. Of course, this we talk a lot. If we see from the internet, because we have a seminar or meetings between governments and private sectors. And also we have business plans, competitions with higher education sectors, particularly in National University of Laos. Many faculties try to make these business plan competitions and try to support if you have a great idea or new ideas. And of course, we have domestic and international markets, particularly in terms of domestic markets. In Lao consumer behavior, we have we like something new. If some company or some, let's say, in the restaurant sectors, if you have news, the consumer or customer will go, and then after that, maybe 5 months or 6 months, then they reduce the number of customers. Then that restaurant might be closed and opens new again. The newcomer and open again, and the people will go again. So in terms of international market also, I think if you are great ideas, maybe you can sell in the international markets. This is also supported by the international organizations like GIZ, JIGA, or World Bank, etc. This also try to promote this, and Laos International Chamber of Commerce and Industry try to support this also. And because of the cooperation between Laos National Chamber of Commerce and Industry and Laos ICT Association, we talk a lot about this, how to promote this idea to the real business. But of course, because of that opportunities, we have a lot of challenge as well in Laos. Now, first is the high cost of doing business in Laos. As you know, when we start to doing business, many process in Laos, documentations, many. So the cost of doing business is really high. If compare with, I think, compare with the ASEAN countries, it's quite high. And access to the finance in early stage, this is also the big problems. When we have some people have a new idea, have great idea, and no money. So they ask to borrow from the banks or from the initial financial institutions, but cannot. Because of what the rule allows that you have own money 30%, and you can borrow only 70% or 60% only that. So this is a big problem. And also for the banks, they ask for collateral is the big problem in Laos right now. So for example, my student or another person have a new idea, great idea, that is quite possible, but when they ask money for investors, cannot. So, and another thing is the access, modeling and coaching developed as government support, particularly in the term of tax incentive, is cannot. It's no tax incentive for the newcomers, except for the FDI in the special economic zones. lack of legislation supports their startup. Of course, innovations is concerned with the new startup. So legislation and support is still the problems, and with a little incentive from the government. So I think it allows for the startup is the latecomers. So of course we have talked some about the startup, but it's a little bit small numbers of this. So then I will touch in my paper that I published in international journal. As I mentioned, the topic is the innovation, export performance, and profitability of Lao government exporter equal own. But I think it can prove what is the innovation is really important for the firms and for the economics as well. I just briefed talk about when I do these papers, writing these papers, I survey for the government's exporter in Laos around, and that time is 101 firms in Laos, and I try to check whether this company have innovation or not. Then I classify as the two innovation is the product innovation and process innovations. For export performance, I use the export intensity and export diversity. Intensity means the ratio of export sales to total sales, and export in diversity is the number of foreign markets. And for profitabilities, I use the ROA and ROS is the finance term. So return on assets is the ratio between net profits total assets, and return on sales is the ratio of net profit to total sales. And I use also control variable is the size of the companies. This is the result of the studies for my that papers. I found that all variables, let's say profit innovation, process innovation, is have correlations with the export performance. And after that, we have the export intensity and export diversity is also have the correlation with the profitabilities. Only those export process in terms of profitability is not it is in correlate with that ROA and ROS. So this is, I can say that the innovation is good, is better than the firm that cannot do the innovation. So that's why my encourage the peoples or the firms or entrepreneurship try to do something new. I come up to my conclusion and recommendations. Of course, innovation and entrepreneurship allows, of course, they have both challenge and opportunities. That is the ones. And the government's of Laos should have a clear policy support. Many things in Laos, I think, still cannot, still not clear right now, especially in terms of the early stage of the entrepreneurship or early stage of startup. So they should have the clear picture or clear policy to encourage these companies, this firm or this new entrepreneur to pursue their business. And the last one is the, of course, entrepreneurship themselves should, when they get the new idea or have a new idea, should be, of course, even though they cannot loan the money from the bank, but they can find another way to pursue the business, to start ups, and they make up the business contact. I mean, until the they list the goals that they can gain the profits of that company or that profits. Okay, this is the end for my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Xayphone. I think we have quite a lot of questions to ask because during these few years, many things happened in Laos, especially the financials and crisis and economic crisis in Laos. And if you have some questions, raise your hands up, and you can start your questions. Professor Nisit, do you have any questions? Yeah, please.
If you talk about Laos, you cannot leave this story, the railways. So you go faster in terms of, transportations to China, but in terms of the other aspects, seems not to be, into complement with those kind of change. Human resources are also the problems, or is that anything that you, because you mentioned about lots of the FDI, a lot of entrepreneurs from neighboring countries like Thailand, Vietnam there, and also China. It was a huge amount from China. Is there any, significant roles of each, country in Laos in terms of contribution to the startup of the local economy?
Okay, thanks, Professor Nisis. Thank you for your questions. Actually, why FDIs come to Laos? Let's say China, Vietnam, Thailand. I think it's on FDI is the way then when they invest in Laos, they attempt to export. So because of Laos is small country, the population is the 7 million. So for the selling in the domestic market, I think local firms that is pay the loans of that a lot. So in terms of China, Thailand, or Vietnam or another, they invest and re-export to another countries. So in terms of Laos, of course, as the Professor mentions, we invest a lot in terms of transportation or infrastructure, particularly you may saw from the news in the railway from Vientiane to Boten, it's the border of Kunming, China. So, and that's, of course, it's the huge loss of money they invest, but as you know, there is borrow from China. Then, of course, then they open, many people go travel by train, particularly right now, from my experience, when I get on the trains, I saw the Thai people and Vietnam people, many go to Luang Prabang or go to Boten. And the contribution of this, of course, let's say human resource of the country, particularly in terms of the education sectors, still not. Of course, we say we will give the important for the education sector, but actually the budget of governments is a little bit low for contribution to these sectors, and because of this, the FDI invest in Laos also because of the labor's cost is really cheap compared to another countries. But for scale, I think it's no, it's compared to another country. Another country is a bit higher than in Laos. Yet I think I can answer your question, Professor.
Yes. Yeah, I also have some questions because Thais and Laos, we have quite really similar culture and language. And a lot of people think that it's not that difficult to start a business in Laos. And what kind of things that we must know as the Thai entrepreneur, the startup, before we go to invest in Laos? What kind of things, what is the most important thing that we must know before we go there?
Okay, thank you. Okay, before you go to invest in Laos, of course, the first one you need to study a lot about the process of starting business in Laos, particularly in terms of documentations, in terms of how to register. You have to write the Ministry of Planning and Investment. So all projects should be like that, and it takes time to consider that it's the first one. I think I recommend you should have a connection or relation with someone in Laos. That is better. Then they can help you. They can help you explain and how to go to some office, some registrations. That is a good way to invest in Laos, and you have to check whether for the tax. If you invest in special economic zone, is they have the tax exemption for 5 years, but you have to invest in that zone in Suvarnakhet province. Okay.
Any other question? Yeah, please.
You mentioned earlier on that banks are always asking for collateral, which unfortunately they also often do here. So they're talking about, with a few exceptions like government saving bank and SME bank, but often they ask for collateral, which then kind of beats the purpose for some of the programs for startups. Wonder if you have created any alternative funding networks for startups, like finding local angel investors, creating angel investor networks and things like that. Is there something like, if you get into Laos, and the previous question on what do you need to do and how to connect, are there kind of any informal networks or even like supported networks for investors of that nature to find startups and help them? Angel investor networks, for example. Do you have those?
Actually, we don't have that. I think because I just as far as my knowledge, I heard that they have some fund for SME support, but you have to loan as well. But it's low interest. So for the network of that, I think not yet.
After hearing your presentation, we heard mostly in infrastructure, like train level, train dam project. And one thing we noticed that a lot of China FDA top pick number one, very high number. And unfortunately, we did not know what kind of business they are doing in Laos beside the very large project.
Okay, thanks. Of course, as you know, Chinese business, they go to all sectors. As you know, big sector until smaller. Agriculture, they also do many sectors, and a lot of traders sectors is many Chinese investor. For the FDA from China, I think in terms of maybe they provide in terms of infrastructures, some project, but some project the Lao government have to loan from the Chinese governments.
Thank you, Professor, for a very interesting presentation. And I also have a question about the railway, because it's very hot topic as well. So, because from my perspective, I think that's maybe at the moment the project is a little bit burden for Laos economy, but in the long term, I think that is a very good investment. And even my country, in my country, Vietnam, now we're thinking about first we want to build another railway to connect Vietnam to China as well, and second we want to build the way to connect Laos to the coast of Vietnam, as I discussed with you earlier. So in the long term, from my perspective, it will be a good investment. So what is your opinion about this project?
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Tons. I think it's a very good idea to connect by train. And therefore, when I discussed with the businessmen earlier, if you have a train or good railway train, you can export a lot. So it can interface between Vientiane to Hanoi, Vietnam, and go to the seas. And so we can export easily. I think is one is the road. Another is a railway. If they come to anywhere, that is the grown up, that is economics as well in that area, I sure. So thank you.
Please.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Instead of government invest in infrastructure, that government have clear policy to support or the regulation to the private sector, and which kind of future Lao economic are focusing on?
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, for the create the infrastructure or construction the infrastructure, of course, Lao government had a clear idea or clear policy on that. But how to support in terms of business or in terms of entities, I think it's correlated together. If we build the construction of road or railway and go to somewhere, I think that is the business we along. That's the way as well.
Any other questions?
Yeah, actually, you according to your study, you are talking about the garment industry. So actually, what I would like to know is like because I'm also interested to expand our services in Laos as well. So what is your recommendation to like invest and then to focus on the for which sector you will recommend to invest for the if I'm an investor or if I'm a kind of a company because like I would like to create like a very good impact for the social too, not only for the profit for the organization. Like I would like to create a synergy effect or the win-win situation for the community too. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, when I talk to governments, the number of governments right now is reduced already. That is, I did the research previously. So the company for government almost they invest from the FDI. So when they have no GSP, so no specials to export, so they close the factory. But in terms of the what sector you interest in invest in Laos, I think it's ICT is quite doing well right now because it's still lack of the ICT led companies right now.